In this video, we'll take a look at the 5th grade standard for numbers and operations and fractions number 1. This standard asks that students add and subtract fractions and mixed numbers with unlike denominators by finding a common denominator and equivalent fraction to produce like denominators. Let's take a look at these two numbers here. Go ahead, hit pause, find the difference, and then hit play and come back. This is typically how students and many of us as teachers would solve this problem. We start off by taking these two mixed numbers, changing them to a fraction greater than 1. Then we find a common denominator. Then we subtract, and we're left with 59/24. And then we go ahead and we change our fraction greater than 1 to a mixed number. Well, what we've done here is really procedural. We've changed the mixed numbers into improper fractions. We cross-multiply to find a common denominator. We subtract only the numerators. We always simplify, and then we change our improper fraction back to a mixed number. All of these are rules. Let's take a look and see what this could look like in a 5th grade classroom.
All right, 4 1/3 minus 1 7/8.
My spirit animal got stolen. My spirit animal got stolen. Your spirit animal is not a hot dog. I don't eat phone.
Oh, I know. That's it. 21 minus 8. That equals
Can I go back up there?
11. And that's 3 plus 13. And so 13 adds to 24 minus 13 equals 11. So at this point, this is 3. 1. That's 2 and 11. 24.
All right, tell me how you got that.
Well, I use my equivalent fractions, and I know that 1/3 is equivalent to 8/24, and 7/8 is equivalent to 21/24. So then I made these 4 and 8/24 minus 1 and 21/24. So then what I did is I got 8, and I know that 21 minus 8 is 13.
Why did you go 21 minus 8?
Because you have to take this. So I was taking this, and I was trying to make this down to a 4. So then 21 minus...
You're trying to do what?
I'm trying to make this to a 4, or to a 4, because I'm trying to make it so that it will be easier for me to subtract.
So you're trying to turn this number right here into a whole number.
Yes, turning
Okay.
this into a whole number. So then once I do that, I am stuck. This number is 13. So then I do 24 minus 13, and that is 3 and 11.
How do you get 13 here?
Well, you get 13 because I did I did 8. I that to 8, so 21 minus.
So you're finding the difference between those two. Mm-hmm. Okay, keep going.
So then that's 13. And so then I do 24 minus 13 because I'm continuing subtracting this from that number. So then that is 11. So then so that's 3 minus 1, that's 2. And plus 11/24 is 2 24.
All right, buddy.
So let's dive in and take a look at this student's thinking. Well, to begin, she went ahead and found common denominators. And then after finding common denominators, she went ahead and used a strategy that she's been building since kindergarten, which is that numbers, and yes, fractions are numbers too, they can be decomposed many different ways. After the student decomposed her fraction of 1 and 21/24 into 3 separate parts, she went ahead and began counting back. When she removed 8/24, she recognized that she was at 4, and then she renamed 4 as 3 and 24/24. Then she counted back 13/24, and then she counted back 1 whole. And then she was left with 2 and 11/24. What's great about this student is that she's connecting her whole number strategies to fractions. Let's see what it might look like with whole numbers, just so we can make that connection. Well, we separate in chunks. Here, we'll go ahead and we'll start with 362, and we'll count backwards 2 to get to 360. Then we'll remove 160 to get us to 200, and then we'll remove that final 21. Exact same understanding that the student just did with fractions, only this is with whole numbers. But this is where that understanding begins. Earlier in the video, we tackled this problem, and it quickly became apparent that the student was procedurally fluent. But that's an end of the expectation in 5th grade. One of the big pieces here that we need to take into mind as we're trying to build procedurally fluent students in our classroom is that we understand that this is the very first time that students are adding or subtracting with unlike denominators. When we deal with thirds and eighths, it can get really messy when we start talking about concrete manipulatives. So, because we understand the progression, we want to be really mindful with the types of questions that we have students engage with. So if we're looking for students to begin to develop this understanding on a road to computational fluency, maybe we don't start with thirds and eighths, but maybe we start with eighths and fourths. By purposefully choosing and selecting these problems here, these numbers, what we do is we allow students access to the types of thinking through the use of manipulatives. Let's take a look and see what this could look like in a class.
So tell me what you got here.
I built 2 holes and 6 1/8.
Where's that? Okay.
And then over here, this is what I have to subtract: 1 whole and 2 1/4.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna do is I already know that this is equivalent to this.
Well, what's this? What's the value of this?
These are whole.
Okay.
And then I know that has already been subtracted. So now I only have these 2 numbers.
These 2 numbers?
These 2 fractions.
Okay. Yeah, they're numbers. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna do that, and I know that's equal.
Well, what did you just take away there? Tell me what you know about those pieces.
I know that 2 1/8 are equivalent to 1 1/4.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, rock on. Keep going.
And then I'm gonna do the exact same thing again.
Okay.
Now I'm left with 1 whole and 2 eighths and 2 1/8.
So when you have 2 holes and 6 1/8, and you subtract 1 whole and 2 1/4,
Yes, sir.
what are you left with?
I'm left with 1 whole and 2 1/8.
Awesome. Okay.
So what is procedural fluency? Well, NCTM defines procedural fluency as the way that students can look at numbers and think of them accurately, efficiently, and flexibly. And I think it's fair to say that this student is procedurally fluent with her fractions. The other piece here, this doesn't happen overnight. This is something that's been building since 1st and 2nd grade. This student has had lots of experience integrating concepts and procedures and building on familiar procedures, and then she is able to create her own informal strategies. All of this is done by teaching through context and number talks. There's a whole lot taking place in this standard. Let's make sure that we're not building this standard through rules, but through conceptual understanding.